Years ago, data backup was simple. Copy files to a disk, or backup to tape, and all was well. Or so we thought. Today we have much more data. Research predicts that there will be 40 zettabytes of data on the planet by 2020. And as businesses learn to better analyze and use the data, it becomes much more valuable. This increase in data has yielded more ways in which to back it up. But beware, not all backup is created equal. Here's a quick look at today's backup options and how they can affect your business. With file-based backups, specific files or folders are saved as needed. File-based backups allow you to restore individual files. Full restores are possible, but because restoration software handles only one file at a time, the process is time-consuming. Do you have time to wait? Image-based backups take a picture of entire machines. With image-based backups, you can restore individual files, do bare metal restores, verify images, boot up virtual machines, and even run remote offices. Because an image-based backup contains a more complete data picture, full restores are much faster and more reliable than they are with a file-based solution. Agentless backups do not require any software to be installed on the machine you want to protect. The backup process can be more efficient, however, by installing a piece of software known as a backup agent. A backup agent can monitor sector-level changes on the machine's drive. This lets the backup process know exactly what sectors to pull, resulting in a low load on the protected machine during backup. Our agent has one more advantage, in that it has two backup engines. If one engine fails, the other kicks in automatically, greatly improving the chances of capturing a healthy backup. What good's a backup if it's flawed? Local backup solutions save data to an on-site device. And while a local-only backup can be quick and easy, relying solely on local can be dangerous. If your office is flooded, for example, there goes your only backup. Direct-to-cloud backup solutions send data to a secure off-site location. Transferring data to and from the cloud is dependent on bandwidth speed, so it can be slower than local backups. However, having your backup in the cloud is innovation in a disaster. A hybrid cloud solution combines the best of both worlds, local and cloud. A hybrid cloud system is less dependent on bandwidth speed than a cloud-only solution. It can schedule transfers without the risk of having no backup data. With a hybrid cloud solution, you can be up and running from a local backup in seconds. And you can also count on an off-site backup should the need arise. We hope this video clarified some of your questions on the types of backup. The fastest, most complete, most guaranteed backup and recovery solution adopts an image-based approach, employs dual backup agents, and provides a hybrid cloud model by combining the benefits of both local and cloud-based storage. Let's talk soon to help you find a solution that will meet all of your needs.
You already take security seriously. Why not take security to the next level with password management as a service? Last year alone, over 1 billion passwords were stolen in more than 1,500 data breaches, which resulted in nearly 50% of adults having personal information exposed. How does that happen? 70% of people use the same password across multiple, if not all, of their applications and services. And 50% of people never use special characters to strengthen their password. You're invested in firewalls, antivirus programs, spam filtering, and backup disaster recovery tools. But have you considered the first line of defense beyond these security measures? Passwords are mandatory to protect your applications, services, and devices. In fact, the average person has 19 logins for various applications and services. The difficulty of remembering and entering strong passwords tends to put people off creating them. But fortunately, our password management as a service offering makes it simple to organize, store, and use strong passwords. The benefits of our password management as a service are clear. Ease of use. Your staff can reset their own login passwords without needing to call the help desk. Increased productivity. Your staff will save time by using one-click logins rather than trying to remember and type in passwords throughout the day. A great ROI. Time wasted trying to find, remember, or reset and input passwords costs an average of $200 per employee each year without a password management solution. Unsurpassed peace of mind. Your staff will easily use unique complex passwords for each service, which greatly decreases the likelihood of a breach. Take security to the next level with our password management as a service. Give us a call or send us an email for more information.
All right. Cool. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tyler Pritchard from Network Concepts. We specialize in helping customers with security, networking, remote access, as well as e-business and website development. This is really our biggest event of the year on cybersecurity. We did it last year. We're going to do it this year. And I think a lot of you guys, whether you came last year or not, are going to be really surprised at what's going on this year and really shocked at what's going on in the world. But the good news is at the end, we're really going to give you a way to avoid all the stuff that's happening. Today, we're going to cover the serious and growing threats to your organization and the that won't happen to me attitude that seems to be going with it, why firewalls and antivirus software aren't enough to protect your organization, what you need to have in place, how mobile phones and cloud applications are seriously jeopardizing your organization, and why the we'll call you when we need IT support is really not a safe, smart, or cost-effective alternative anymore. But ultimately, we're going to cover how to avoid being a sitting duck. The reality is that most companies right now are bringing cloud and mobile solutions inside the organizations. And it's a trend that's not slowing down because it's just so easy to do. But organizations aren't doing it with a plan. They're not doing it strategically. They're not thinking about it. And you'll hear us say this all the time in the IT world, whether you come to us or not. If you fail to plan, your plan will fail, especially with what's going on in the world of cybersecurity today. Now, this is the first time we've actually done a webinar and a lunch and learn. We've done webinars. A lot of you guys know we do go-to-meetings with you guys individually. We've never done a webinar and a lunch and learn. We've done either or. It's been a request for a lot of people to try and do it, and even people that use this room here, they want to do it for their employees, so we decided to do it first. It really isn't as easy as we thought it was going to be, so if something goes wrong, I'll apologize for that now. We've gone through it before. But there's a lot of people that can't make it here all the time because it's an inconvenience, so they're watching the webinar. So I watch a lot of webinars in the IT world, so I know what these guys are going to be doing. They're going to be reading their email and probably not paying attention halfway through, but at the end, we've worked hard all year to put a lot of solutions in place, and at the end, we're going to give away a lot of stuff. So if you're on the webinar, pay attention. You guys here, you'll be here, so you'll get it anyway. But we're going to do a security audit for anybody that wants one, mobile device policy template, and with the security audit, we're going to add a bonus to that, so the value is going to be a lot more. We're going to tell you guys how to get business class file and share. We were with Dado last week for a full year as an alternative to Dropbox to have your employees stop using home-based applications. We've got some great ASCII deals on security awareness training. And then finally, we've got some great Passportal deals for the end of the sticky notes, because you guys know how much IT guys hate sticky notes, and you see them all the time. And we've got actually some more stuff coming up at the end, so I want everybody to hang in there. But before we get rolling, there's a lot of you guys that don't know network concepts. I'm going to go through that very briefly. Since we started in 2004, we wanted to become a complete IT solution. We started out a lot different than a lot of other people in 2004, and we wanted to change the technology consulting business really as it is today. And I think you'll see towards the end of that we've really kept up to that promise for everybody. We specialize in the small and mid-sized businesses. We're not a LAR, which is a large account manager. We've had Cisco come in here and talk to us about doing that, and the problem is they're two different worlds. So we don't get into the large accounts. Everything we do is designed for the SMB, which the SMB is really huge. The large accounts are a totally different world. We have a deep understanding of IT networks. A lot of the places you'll find are accounting firms where they'll have 10 or 20 accountants and one IT guy. We're the exact opposite. We have one CPA and she works on our stuff. That's it. We're all IT. We try to build value into everything we do. This whole location down here was requests from you guys. So everything here is you guys wanted to be able to do classes for your staffs. Even this webinar today, that was a big request for the people that do use this room, because you guys can use this room for free, is they wanted to broadcast it. So we figured that out, up to including the lights. There was somebody that used the room and said, hey, can you dim the lights? And at the time, I didn't know how much that was going to cost. So I'm like, yeah, sure, that should be easy. That wasn't that cheap. So we'll try to do everything within reason that you guys ask for. I mean, we have full-time web development now that you guys can call in and get stuff done. We can do videos down here because they're hot. We're not trying to get you guys to leave anybody else or your web developer. We're just trying to give you guys solutions that are cost-effective. But the reality is we focus on your IT so you can focus on your business. So we kind of looked at this, and we're going to do this every year. And people had asked us to do it more, and we'll see how that goes. But we looked at last year and we looked at this year. And the thing we're going to talk about today is that 100% of the business that we've taken on since the last time we met had three things in common. They didn't have all, some of them had all three, some of them had one or two of three, but that's what we're going to concentrate on. And we don't take on a lot of new customers. But this was one of our biggest problems is when we would take on a customer, when we get there, they were infected with malware and viruses, even though they had antivirus and firewalls installed. And the thing that bothers us the most is a lot of them didn't even know it. We would find notes from hackers on stuff, and they had no idea. This one's a big one for me. Anybody that knows me, I've been banging this drum forever. They didn't have their data backed up. They thought they had their data backed up, but they never tested it. They never verified it, and they didn't have it backed up. And that was a lot, which in the real world today, that shouldn't happen. And this is the thing that we talked about with shadow IT that's going on, and information for businesses. They had information on file sharing apps and P2P networks that really has to be stopped, because in some cases, if you don't know the state laws, it's illegal. And the problem that we saw was, all these businesses believe that nothing bad's going to happen to them, so it's not a big deal. So we have to find a way to kind of like demonstrate to you guys the vulnerability and make it hit home, but not just try to deliver scary facts. And that's what I'm going to try to do. We're going to look at a lot of local incidences. We're going to look at national and even international incidences. We're not going to talk about anybody, customers or stuff. We're going to stick to public information and how it could relate to you. This is another line you'll hear from us a lot. This is Andrew Grove. He was an icon in our industry, and he sums it up pretty well. Success breeds complacency, complacency breeds failure, and only the paranoid survive. Which is really, when we look at you guys with your success, it means that you haven't been attacked, or you haven't been attacked yet, or you were and it wasn't serious enough, because we run across that all the time with notes from hackers that says, "Hi, I was here and stole your stuff," and we find it. But that attitude says, well, yeah, it's happened or it hasn't happened, but it's not going to happen to me. But guys, don't underestimate the importance of all this stuff that we're going to go over today. The financial ramifications, aggravation, because I sit with you guys when something bad does happen, whether it's a hack or a disaster or anything else. It is beyond stressful. And these are the simple facts. It has nothing to do with IT, but most people buy a fire alarm after they had a fire. Most people buy a burglar alarm after they've been robbed and someone's stolen all their stuff and their wife and kids are upset. And I'm not going to say everybody has to go out and buy, go over the top, but I just want you guys to lock your doors, or maybe even get a dog to protect yourself. I don't need the whole security thing. But the common denominator, whether you look at it from fires or robberies or IT breaches, is everybody thought, well, that's not going to happen to me. So before we get started, I know we did this last year, and I'm going to do it a little bit quicker this year, I want you guys to understand what's going on with the cybercrime world. Because this is a business. This isn't a couple guys sitting at home, playing on video games and deciding, hey, we're going to hack somebody. I mean, this is a serious business, and it's getting worse. So I want everybody to understand what we're up against. And the thing is, with crime has followed technology. Crime started out in the old days, it was relatively simple. You jump out, you had a gun, come up, give me your money, you're done. Criminals started to evolve with technology, and not just IT. When trains came along, that was a technology thing. If you look at growing a business, if you could clean and qualify all your leads and put them in one spot, if you're a criminal back then, that was it. You had to have money to get on a train. They were all in one spot and out in the middle of nowhere, the way trains worked, so they started robbing trains. Great. Instead of robbing one person, 200 to 300 people. So what we're seeing is IT evolves. Now you're really, you can't fit 100,000 people on a train, but as IT evolves, you can see all these numbers up here, and you can see the one we're going to talk about. That's the biggest bank in the world. A lot of these blue ones don't matter. Like, does anybody care about Yahoo? Ashley Madison was funny, but it really wasn't a data breach. I mean, I guess it wasn't funny if you were involved in it, but it generally wasn't that big. But you've got some big ones in here over the years that have really jumped into place. And these people are able to rob a lot of people and make a lot of money. Since I brought up JP Morgan, we're going to continue to, if you looked at the last slide, JP Morgan is still the biggest financial hack. And we're going to talk about that only because there's a lot more information out there today from last year. But this wasn't a one or two guys stealing a couple credit cards. This was a group of people who stole tens of millions, an estimated 80 million personal accounts and 7 million small to medium-sized business accounts fell in one swoop. And that was right on the heels of Target and Home Depot, which Target was 40 million, I think, and Home Depot was, I think Target was 56 and Home Depot was 40 or something like that. It was a lot. So this had just happened. And the reason it's so important here is because we think of banks like put your money in the bank, put your data in the bank. When you've got the largest bank getting hacked, this is serious. And the reason I wanted to talk about this a little bit more, that I knew about this last year, but it wasn't really common knowledge, was there was 5 guys that did this. They arrested 4 of them. Somehow the tech guy got away, and that's a common denominator. So if you guys are getting into cybercrime, try to be the tech guy, because some reason the tech guy always gets away, which is a good thing if I ever did. I would never decide to do it. But these 5 guys got away with $100 million. That's like a Fast and Furious movie. So this isn't something that these guys aren't going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to stop. We're not going to do this anymore. Now, it was over the course of time, and Chase did a lot of stupid things that we can talk about, including they didn't patch a very well-known open vulnerability. So it's great as us in IT when we look back on it, but the other part of you thinks, like, what is wrong with you that you wouldn't even address the most simple things that are required? So there a lot of people did a lot of stuff wrong, but the guys that took advantage of this are not going to stop. They're just not going to do it at that kind of price tag. The other one I want to talk about is that we have a lot of information on, and I talked about this last year. I got this slide from Jana Monroe, she used to be the assistant director of the FBI cybercrime division. You guys actually would know her more from, she was the movie Silence of the Lambs, Clarice. When she was a profiler, that's where most people know her from. It was modeled after her. She was the original profiler. But she went on to the FBI, and she works with a lot of companies, which I'll explain later. But I think she did a great job on this slide explaining what happens, because her being in the FBI, she knows so much about it, and Target revealing so much information. I got hit by Target, Home Depot, and Chase. The Chase thing, we have a Chase business card. I go to Home Depot all the time because I have kids in a house. I never go to Target. I went to Target with my wife to buy something for the kids, and somehow I got caught up in all this. But anyway, the lawsuits that came out of this were 80. The PII customer information, which really has to deal with state stuff, 70 million records were stolen. 40 million credit card debit cards were stolen. So the cost of the data breach was a total of $148 million. The earnings that were dropped were $898 million. But here's where it got serious. I'm not going to spend 2 hours on it like she did. She went through a lot of stuff and cutting it up. But this is where it starts to get serious. The executives that were forced to resign were the CEO and the CIO. Board members pressured to resign because they really, if you peel it back, they made a lot of simple mistakes. I mean, stuff that you would be shocked at if you ever looked into this case. So these guys were all forced or pressured to resign. Here's the biggest thing that happened to them is 5 to 10% will never shop at Target again. And I'm really one of those people because I know the details. I have nothing against Target at all until I got involved in this, and I really that affects me every time I go to Target. I think about how irresponsible they were with my data. And here's the reality of this hack. This was a 17-year-old kid developed this software called Black POS. if we wanted to stop the lunch and learn right now, we have enough time. I could teach all you guys how to write this black suit POS software. That's how easy it is. But he sold it 40 builds of this on the underground markets for around $1,800 to $2,000 a piece. So this 17-year-old kid made between $70,000 and $80,000, which launched into this. And if you look at the whole case, this is only the tip of the iceberg. You have the people that bought all this stuff, especially the credit cards and debit cards, charge some of them $100,000+ per card. The personal information, which is tied to identity theft, this is, like I said, if we look at the iceberg down here, it's huge. And it all started with some kid that wrote one of the easiest pieces of software. You know, it's basic 101 stuff. But I want to get into this so you guys really understand where this is going, since we talked about the kid. You can buy right now credit card details from $2 to $90. You can buy iTunes accounts for $8. This is what happens after the hacks. You can buy physical credit cards, which means they'll actually reproduce the credit cards for you so you can use them. And that was a big thing with Target. They were finding people with the reproduced ones. Card cloners. You see this on the news all the time. These are on Mac machines, gas machines. You've heard a couple cases of, you know, restaurants using card cloners where you stick your card into something or give it to somebody, they're going to run it through and clone it. So you're getting a little bit more expensive here. Now you get into the big boys of these fake ATMs. You can go online and buy a fake ATM. And basically, if you're someplace like the boardwalk, you stick your card in, it says, sorry, you know, we kept your card. Now, a lot of them nowadays spit them back out, but there's still some that take them. And these are the best because you get the chip, you get everything. But the thing is that anybody can easily buy this stuff to start up their own cybercrime really system for not a lot of money. I mean, you look in here at, you know, under $100,000, and you put the website thing in there and paying some kid $1,800, you're talking about a little bit of money to potentially make $100 million. So it's really a business that's not going away, especially the lower level stuff. You know what I mean? This stuff in here is relatively cheap. And the thing is, and this is where we have a problem is, but we're small, nobody would bother to hack us. And, you know, people say, well, I'm not a Target, I'm not a JP Morgan. The realistic part is that these bigger guys, I worked in the bank industry for a long time. Yeah, they make big mistakes, but they are not easy to get into. To where a lot of the smaller guys probably don't make the big mistakes that they did out of greed, but they're much easier if they're not configured correctly to get into. And if they rob a bunch of smaller people, it's basically the same thing as hitting a big target, except they can probably get away with it more. But here's the facts. 1 in 5 small businesses fall victim to cybercrime each year, and that number is growing. That's true. I mean, I can tell you, we do a lot of work with different companies. We have some managed companies that never have any problems, but we also do depot repair and we also do project work. So I could tell you that there are a ton of people out there that fall victim to cybercrime. A lot. Just, you know, you don't hear about it. Small businesses are low-hanging fruit because they don't believe they're a target, and therefore they have loose security systems and protocols in place. And half of all cybercrimes are aimed at SMBs. These guys are not, you know, saying, oh, I only want to go after JP Morgan or Target. They're going to go after anybody, everybody and anybody they can. They're just scanning the internet. And this is a lot of stuff that's going on, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is why we don't hear about it. It's extremely embarrassing to admit that you've been hacked. A lot of people, like I said, they don't even know that they've been hacked. So that's a real problem. And it's absolutely terrible PR. The one thing that Target did that Home Depot didn't do, and we're still debating if that's the right or the wrong thing, is they immediately tried to get in front of it, and I think it backfired because it was just such big news that Home Depot kind of backed off on it a little bit, even though it was a very similar hack. It was actually identical hacks. It was the same 17-year-old kid, the same software, and the same vulnerabilities that they both had. Different systems, but the same thing. Um, the other thing whoops. Okay, the legal ramifications, fines, and lawsuits that come along with it, we're going to talk about that too. Um, there was a federal law, I don't know if you guys know this, it did not go into effect. It was going to require companies 30 days to, if you got breached, you had 30 days to actually notify the public about it. Now, it never got approved because they never set any standards on how to do it. But if you come to us, we fix breaches all the time. We don't report it. There's no reason to report it. And that's why you don't hear about this stuff. But it is really going on. I don't think that that law will ever be approved because they can't even settle on what a breach is. So we might be living in this world forever until everybody gets on the same page, and it's a global problem. So I doubt that's going to happen. But the key point really is, and this brings me back to the big guys, just because you guys aren't worried about the information, and I'm not saying you're not, but the big guys, we know for a fact they didn't care about people's information. We see it all that we actually saw it in Sands, which isn't that far from here in Bethlehem. We know from analyzing this stuff that a lot of people don't care about their customers' information, but you guys have to think about how's your customer going to feel once they find out that it becomes public that you guys cut corners and didn't care about that information, and you kind of shrugged it off. And that's where these people get into a lot of trouble. That's how Target got into trouble. That's how Home Depot got into trouble. Like I said, Sands in Bethlehem was a perfect example of that. They developed some homegrown client portal, very little security, and wound up getting sued by half of their employees. That's something you guys can look up. We're not going to talk about it, but it's really, it shows that they didn't care enough to spend a little bit of money to invest in a company to develop, not even develop it, if you develop, you own it, but to buy a client portal. So now that we've covered all the what's going on, we looked at all the threats that are out there and kind of try to figure out which ones are the most applicable for this year. So we're going to go through the top 7. Does anybody know what the #1 security threat to an organization is? Not not you guys sitting at home, but an organization. Any guesses? Yeah, exactly. Employees, whether they mean to or not, are the #1 threat. They cause the most problems. And even good employees that make mistakes cause problems or change things or go on Facebook. If you look at a lot of these hacks, it starts with social engineering through phishing emails, then moves to spam. Social engineering is not possible without the social part, which is the human interaction. So this is where a lot of people get in trouble. And the other thing that we're seeing a lot of, because it's so easy right now to integrate technology, is they're using what we call shadow IT, and it's very hard for us to detect it because it uses the same protocols that are standardly used in business-to-business communications. It used to be a lot easier a couple years ago. It's getting very hard now to keep track of these employees. It's not impossible, but it's getting much more difficult. And basically that has to go with the business owners. It's easy to lock stuff down. The business owners don't want to make the hard decisions. So the employees are #1. And to prove this, we all heard the FBI security warning. Well, us in IT, we heard last night the FBI issued a security warning about a potential voter fraud coming out of Russia and all this other stuff. Not that interesting. We hear it every day. But the FBI in 2014 issued a cybersecurity warning on employees. Now, us in the IT world, we're thinking, like, do you really have to issue a warning about this? And I can read it to you. It's employees who are leaving or have been fired have been known to use company data, blah, 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 to make fraudulent purchases using company or customer data, delete important data, steal software, steal business IPs that they could use at their next job, and it goes on and on and on. But that goes to show you how serious this is, that they would have to actually release a cybersecurity warning on it a couple years back. To me, I'm thinking, like, is this for real? Because this seems like common sense. Because employees can steal stuff without IT, but that's how prevalent it's become. And the other thing that I think really hit us in the IT industry, we weren't tracking that because insider data breaches don't get the same attention as like a cyber attack. Like when Sony got attacked, that was big news. That was a country that attacked a U.S. company. If somebody that works for a company, insider data breaches, we just don't talk about them. Half of them aren't even investigated. So, but the reality is there, and this is happening, whether the employees want to do it purposely or whether it's just an accident. This is the accident part of it, and this is, what hopefully when you guys go back, you remember the shadow IT and talk about it. You're going to see me, you guys are going to think I pick on Dropbox. I don't pick on Dropbox. It's just Dropbox is out there in the news. I'm not an anti-Dropbox person. But shadow IT, does everybody, let me read the definition. Shadow IT is an application or other IT resource obtained or built by business users without the knowledge or approval of the IT department. So this is really becoming a problem. Symantec did a research and found that 77% of businesses were home to shadow cloud deployments. 40% of that 77% found that these guys had confidential data on the cloud deployments. So if you think about that, if you're not aware of a problem, you're going to get blindsided. It really makes it's not impossible, but it virtually makes compliance almost impossible. You have to know about a problem to be able to fix it. And this is something that you're going to hear more and more about, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more because it just happened around very close to here. This is what happens with shadow IT deployments. This is big news. It was actually on 60 Minutes. It's called The Devil Inside the Beltway. And if you break it down, it was a good employee's mistake, corporate blackmail. The federal government destroyed this guy's business. This is LabMD. LabMD was a great company, growing company, millions of dollars a year. Tons of them actually had a 4-person IT department. Most small businesses don't have that, so they were pretty big. The employee had LimeWire, which is just a P2P file sharing app. So the good employee happened, unfortunately, to work in billing, had LimeWire, forgot to uncheck share my default drive, my default folder, and then they didn't actually get hacked. They were told they got hacked by a PA cybersecurity company. This PA cybersecurity company was actually developed an app to scan you guys to look to see if you guys had point-to-point file sharing apps open. They proceeded to call LabMD, who had already taken care of it, and blackmail them. They said, if you don't give us $38,000 to come in and turn the switch off, we're going to report you to the FTC. Which the FTC is a very bad place to wind up because they don't know anything about cybersecurity. They are all red tape. So if you wind up there, you're in bad shape. Those guys can't even spell IT. They don't even know what it means. So it went into, okay, well, we'll give you this, and you're blackmailing us, because they did a whole research to find this file. So LabMD found out that these guys were the ones that took the file, and they were blackmailing them. So they thought this would be a slam dunk case. Turns out it's not. Traverse out of Pittsburgh did what they said they were going to do, and they did this constantly. They reported LabMD, and they reported a ton of other people to the FTC. That's where you go into the rabbit hole once you get into the FTC if you've done something wrong, because they are looking out for consumer protection. They can attack you from all ends. The FTC proceeded to destroy LabTech through litigation. Now, what happened in the middle of this, the FBI actually has a cybercrime division, and the FBI got wind that Traversa was doing this constantly because the idiot that owns Traversa tried to say that he had a document on Marine One or something. So the FBI got involved, and they started looking at it, and they said, this is impossible. No one could turn this many people over to the FTC unless they're doing something wrong. So to get out of all the details, the FBI raided Traversa in Pittsburgh, arrested the company heads, and you think that would be the end of it? The FTC never stopped. This is a picture of the guy. His business is closed down. Everything's in there, and the FTC is still pursuing the case. when nothing was done wrong, no crime was committed, no breach was attempted, other than the security firm who did it, who is now under really FBI. They arrested the guy. So that's how badly this can go for everybody. And this is a book, which if you're really into it, it's a great book, but it's also a 60 Minutes or somebody did a show on it. It's really, really interesting, the stuff that can go on that you just don't think about it. I mean, in hindsight, and I'm not telling you to do this, Mike Doherty should have paid the 38 grand. But he did what he thought was right. He did what I think a lot of people would think is not paying someone who's going to blackmail you. But he's really in bad shape now. So now we're done with all the employee stuff, and we could go on about employees, like I said, all day. We're going to get to number 2, which I'm going to be quick on because it's malware. We talk about malware all the time. The funny thing, though, and the reason I brought this back is because it's big, but this is last year's slide from 2013 numbers. This is this year's slide from 2015 numbers. It went to 10 times the amount. So if you look at that, it was bad before. That's how much it's growing every year. It's like if you have a firewall and antivirus and that's what you think is going to protect you from this, it's like trying to stop a tank with a water pistol. We had a screen up that we were going to put up in the NOC, and it showed all the attacks that go on around the globe. You guys might have seen it. It's a website. We were going to publish it. And the reason we decided to not do it and take it down was, first of all, it was depressing as heck because it was scary. And in some days, it got to the point I was worried about somebody having a seizure because it was just lightning bolts shooting across the screen. So we try not to look at the negative stuff, but malware is really becoming bad. Bank fraud, I want to get into a little bit more this year because I used to work in the banking industry. The FDIC does not protect you from bank fraud. It protects consumers. It doesn't protect businesses. And we talked about Western Beaver County last year where they went on break and then they came back from break and they were missing $704,000. They were able to get reversed for $41,000 of transactions, and then it went to litigation and settlement. And you might ask, like, how would that be? How's that possible to go on break? What they did, just so you guys know to never do this, is they turned over their banking information to a board member. Board members are not employees. They are not entitled to get access to your network under any way, shape, or form. I don't care who they are. They're not employees. I'm on boards. I try to avoid them because they're time-consuming and political, but I have no I get asked on boards because I can help people with technology, but I would never want to get access to their bank accounts. This was a huge mistake, and it was a big, big case because who's really at fault? If a company gives a non-employee access to their banking information and he goes home and uses it and gets hacked, who's at fault? This one went to litigation. We don't know really what happened, but here's what we do know that's happening. Banks are now prevailing. They are not going to give you your money back if you do something stupid. And it's not that they're not going to give you back. Judges have ruled on this. So a judge ruled in 2014 that a Missouri escrow firm that lost $440, so $1,000 less, in a 2010 cyber heist cannot be held the bank liable. And this is the worst part. The firm has to pay the bank's legal fees. Now, the guy's devastated, and obviously the escrow firm's shutting down, but the guy was stupid. I mean, he did very dumb things with his money, and the courts, if you guys choose to do dumb things, they are not going to have the banks pay for you anymore. It's just something that common sense laws are actually starting to take place in some of this stuff. Now, there's a couple different cases that were actually the total opposite. We have a firm that lost $600,000 in a case in Maine, but that was proven to be the bank's fault, so they got it back. There's also a case involving a California oil company that made mistakes, but they had crime insurance. So they were able to recover their $350,000. But now keep in mind, crime insurance is not cybercrime insurance. They actually had crime insurance, which protects them. We're not insurance guys, but we know enough about insurance that we can help you out. And we have a lot of customers that are independent agents that come here, so I can refer it to you guys. There's a big difference between cybercrime and crime. Cybercrime is penetration. If your bank account gets robbed, that's crime, whether it's from an employee or somebody outside. So that's another thing that you're seeing a lot is people are saying, well, I thought I was covered. And it is a very, very complicated subject, and it's getting worse. I know I filled our liability policy out, which we pay a ton. You would think that we're like this dangerous, being IT guys is dangerous. It's like, it's not even on the top 100 most dangerous jobs in the world, other than, your fingers might get sore, but the liability is huge for us. So we have to answer all sorts of questions, and a lot of people are calling us because they don't know how to answer these new questions, especially the Hartford forms really get into a lot of details and everybody else is following. So, really look at this and remember, if something bad happens and you do something really wrong, you might be out of money. And if you lose $440,000, that's not something you're going to come back at, especially if you get charged with the legal fees to fight it. All right, this slide might be worth the whole trip. I don't know. I worked for a bank. I know the insides and outs of it. I did it for quite a while. If you can, for a business, cancel your debit cards. There's no reason for a business account to have a debit card. I know a lot of banks are forcing that. We got forced into it. We actually thought about changing banks, and I don't really get involved in the accounting, but that was my first thing. Well, let's change banks. We decided to shred the card. You don't need a debit card for a business account. Have a dedicated PC for online banking, and don't use that PC for access to anything other than websites, email access. This is a little harsh, but it goes back to the Western Beaver School District. If you've got somebody that wants access to your bank account that's not an employee, tell them, yeah, that's fine. Come in here, sit at this machine that I know is secure, and you can look at whatever you want. So when you're on break, you don't come back and you're broke because someone made a very poor decision. So that's really where this goes. You can lock it down, but try to keep something that's dedicated for that. This is another one. Sign up for email alerts from your bank whenever a withdrawal over $100 happens. I know a lot of you can't do that. Some of you are building huge pieces of machinery, but get something in the accounting system that notifies you when a withdrawal happens. If you're building big machinery, make it 1,000 or 10,000, proportionate to what you have in the bank. Require your signatures for any wire transfers, because if these guys want to make money quickly, they're going for the bank accounts. It's great to make $100 million off of Chase. That takes a long time. If you need money right here, right now, you're going, this is the way you're going. You're going right at the bank accounts for ACH transactions. Just don't allow wire transfers. Tell your bank you're not going to do it. We do this. We have money spread out on multiple accounts. We've even talked about multiple banks, but we're not a big company. We don't have a lot of money, so that would be more of an inconvenience. And then, like I talked about, carry crime insurance. Depending on what you do, you might need cybercrime insurance too. I don't know. But crime insurance is employee theft, forgery or altercations, inside the premise theft of money or securities, inside the premise robbery or safe burglaries or other property, outside the premise, and then you see down towards the bottom it says computer fraud, fund transfer fraud, money order counterfeiting money. Like I said, you got to talk to an agent. I know a lot of them around here. They're all good guys, girls, and make sure you have that addressed. Now that we covered banking, and I know I'm rushing through a lot of this stuff, but I want to do a lot of the questions at the end, and I'm going to hang out as long as you guys need me. So if you want to talk about anything at the end, I'll sit here all day and talk about it. We spent a lot of time putting this information together on what we think that you guys need, so I'm really up to date on what's going on. All right, social media. This is one of those things that we can't get around. In the old days, when social media first popped up, it was a nightmare. And the answer to IT, a lot of us are here on the web, we just said, well, that's easy, we'll block it. Well, now, social media has actually turned into a sales and marketing tool. It's not that easy to just say, we're going to block it. So now we have to deal with it. But the reality is 600 Facebook accounts are hacked every single day. And we know that from celebrities and other stuff like that. We see it all the time. But why this is such a big threat is social media. And I'm not picking on Facebook. Microsoft just bought LinkedIn. I should have that up there. They had a 167 million attacks right before Microsoft bought them. But where social media comes into play for us is it's phishing. And what they're able to do is they're able to build a profile of you guys through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through Gmail, and they're able to take all that information, and you can see here, like, update your account. And people sign on this stuff, and they do it through social media, and they start to give these people information, which then allows them to start the hacks. And usually the next step is through spam. Even though this is kind of spam, this is more phishing than spam. The other threat to employees, and I don't think it's really a threat, but is allowing social media into the networks, which we do as IT guys, is the colossal waste of time. I was shocked at this number because I'm not really a heavy social media user. I don't care what people have for lunch. I don't care if they're sitting on their back decks and they made a steak. I don't care if their kids learn how to ride a bike. So I find it awfully boring. But if you look at these numbers, 3% of the employees, that's over a day, a week they spend on social media. And the number one thing is Tumblr. I don't even get Tumblr. I mean, I know what it is, but I'm like, wow, how could you do that? So we have the threat of phishing. Now we have the loss of productivity. And then this is the big one this happens all the time. And the reason this guy is, I keep going back to him. There was this guy here and another guy in the sink. Unfortunately, I think both of them were from Burger King. But this guy here was hunted down. I guess people love their Whoppers because the internet community hunted this guy down in 15 minutes and exposed who he was. But this is the other threat that we have with social media and employees inside is they could totally trash you. So social media presents a really unique threat that, as businesses, we all have to deal with. Now we went from malware to ransomware. This has been all over the news, and it's kind of dropping off a little bit. And it goes back to the money thing. A writer once asked, what kind of writing pays the most? And it's simple, a ransom note. And that's really what's going on with the crypto locker and all the variants. In 1999, I worked for a bigger company. We exposed a computer to be encrypted. There was no ransom attached to it. We did it in a lab to see what would happen, and it went through, and it was like, yeah, this is annoying. This is really, really bad. So years later, what's happening now is they're attaching it to, pay this money and we'll give you your data back. We do a lot of depot repair where people can walk in and out. You can walk in and out of here. You can walk in and out of the other place where you don't necessarily have to have an account. You don't have to be managed. We see this all the time, whether it's individual users, business users that don't have a business account. The sad part, and I can tell you this, the truth, is a lot of people never get the decryption keys. They spend a lot of money. Unfortunately, who this is affecting in our area that I know for a fact is the older people. They're getting robbed blind by this. So this is another way that we're looking at, of making the quick buck. And it's evolving. I'm going to try, well, let's start with the FBI. This was on major news, and it was only a couple weeks ago. The FBI has advised everyone to cover up their computers, webcams, and stop being spied on. Comcast had it on their front page, MSN. The ironic part about this is not the FBI wasn't accused of it, but the NSA, the federal government, was accused of using webcams. I'm not saying whether they did it or not, but they were accused of using webcams to spy on people. So why are they coming out and saying this? There is a reason, but I think their major reason was once you get accused of something, you're never going to do it again, so they figure why not. But here is the reasoning behind this. And it's not prevalent over here. It's in Japan, and I'm going to try to keep this, like I said, as PG as possible. But in Japan, what's going on is you can download these applications, and they're anime applications where you can interact with these characters. So as we keep it PG, the interaction goes into the R plus ratings. So after 30 days, they're getting an email, and I can read you the email. Mr. Blank, we can tell by the screenshots of your computer and photos taken with your PC's camera that you've really been enjoying the game. The game you've downloaded. Now we want you to pay us 100,000 yen. I don't know how much that is. That could be $1 for all I know. But we want you to pay 100,000 yen, or we will email these photos to everyone in your email address book. So this is a whole new twist on ransomware. Now it's a little weird, but that's where it's going, because you can take this into different parts of the world. What's happened here with ransomware, that anime thing hasn't happened here, but what's happened here, and it was easily disproved, was a 12-year-old girl had a cell phone that was loaded up because she clicked the wrong thing with child pornography that was undeletable. It destroyed the phone, and the ransom was, if you don't pay this fine, we're going to turn you in. Now, they did the right thing. They went to authorities, but if you were, I don't know, a senator, you would, I mean, hopefully a senator would do it, but if you were a person of a high position, even though you didn't do anything wrong, you might be terrified of the PR that goes on with that. So now we're taking ransomware to a whole new level with, it's one thing to steal your data and you lost your, hopefully you have stuff backed up, but now they're taking this to attacking people's reputations. And it's really getting to be something that's really, really serious. All right, let's get into the mobile device stuff. Mobile device means pretty much anything. Laptop, phone, whatever. Does everybody here, I think everybody here has a mobile device. I work with guys that have 3 of them. So I'm kind of like, whoa, we all got mobile devices. Do we all have company email on our mobile devices? Pretty much. No? Some of you do, some of you don't. Does everybody have passwords on their mobile devices? Because that's the biggest thing you need to have. Yeah. The other thing you need to have is mobile device management, which means when you lose the phone, you can wipe it if it's stolen. And if you have an Android, we're going to do cloud and mobile next month, so I'm not going to talk about this a lot, but Apple's kind of moved to sandbox. They've done away with antivirus, but try, if you have a business phone, try to look into antivirus. And here's why. We talked about this last year, and you're going to see in about 5 minutes why I'm reviewing this. The importance of this case was another one like the LabMD case. This was a small hospice that lost a laptop. Now, they didn't lose it. It got stolen. The guy that stole it had no idea that there was information on it. It was not a data breach theft. They recovered the laptop. The police recovered it instantly. And before this, the government has never fined the small guys. Not only did they not fine the small guys, they definitely didn't fine the small guys when there was no crime committed. So these people here got fined as kind of a warning shot, and they reduced the fines like they do with everybody over a stolen laptop that nothing bad happened. No personal information was involved. No patient health information was involved. The guy that stole it had no interest in any information. He wasn't a cyber criminal at all. He just stole the laptop. So they got fined. They broke the law. And here's the thing is, most people don't know what the law is. Here's the law, and it's very vague. It goes by state. Now, if you fall under compliance, you have a different set of laws. For those of you that don't, you might not even know that you've broken the law because you've left information leave the network without it being encrypted. Here it is. An individual's first name or first initial and last name in combination with any link to any one of the following data elements. When the element aren't encrypted or redacted. No, besides the government, nobody redacts stuff. I mean, that was, I don't know why they have it in there because it's the government. Actually, one of the hacks was because a company didn't redact public PDF files. So anyway, we've got that. You're not encrypted. You're not redacted. So you have that little bit of information: social security number, driver's license number, or state card identification in lieu of a driver's license. Which, yeah, you kind of get that. You kind of see this. Here's where it becomes kind of wishy-washy, and the words aren't really clear. Account number or credit card number. It doesn't say account number to a bank. It just says account number. And then it says any combination with security code, access code, password that will require to an individual's financial account. Very vague statement if you look at it in the world of cybersecurity and the way everything connects. It could be, I mean, anybody's allowed to sue anybody. That law can be taken into a lot of different ways. So now we know all this. We heard about it. This is old news. This was the warning shot that said, hey, you know, we're serious about this. You guys aren't allowed to do this stuff anymore. And especially with all the new operating systems with your mobile devices, encryption is included. So there's really not a lot of excuses. So I can see where they're coming from. So now you guys all heard about it here last year. You heard about it here this year. And as far as the IT world's concerned, everybody should know about this, right? Wrong. This just came out. I mean, this was only a couple months ago. Catholic Health Services of Philadelphia will pay $650,000 for an iPhone. Now, you would think, now, and the other thing about this case is they were really fined because they didn't have policies in place. They didn't have no policies addressing the removal of a mobile device containing PHI from the facility, and they didn't have a security scan done. So what they got fined for was not actually losing the iPhone. It was because of their policies and procedures. And we all live around here, so we know a lot about the Archdiocese of Philadelphia health system. They got a reduced fine, and according to the OCR, an extremely reduced fine down to $650,000 because they do so much with the people inside of Philadelphia, specifically related to AIDS victims. So if that's a deal for losing an iPhone, that's kind of scary. I mean, that is a ton of money. But you can see they had no policies addressing removal of mobile devices. It wasn't encrypted. Obviously, that's where it starts out with. And to set it all off, not only do they have to pay this, they have to be monitored by the OCR for 2 years afterwards. So this is a big deal. And the reason that it's such a big deal is because we all knew it was a big deal. I don't want to pick on them. The healthcare services hasn't been here, but there's been other parts of the Archdiocese that have been in here concerning computer-related stuff. So, like I said, I'm not picking on them. This is public knowledge. You guys can look it up, but that's where we're going today. All right, the last one we're going to get into, we talked about everything else and how it works, is spam. Everything starts, all the big attacks started with spam. They'll do the social engineering stuff. They'll figure out who you are, where you work, all the information they can get, and then they'll get into the spam. That's how JP Morgan got started. That's how Target got started. RSA Security, Home Depot was another one. Neiman Marcus was another one. The biggest one that is also well documented, because we know a lot about this, is Sony. That's a rarity. That last year that was a rarity. You didn't see countries attacking companies, especially over a movie. So that was like one of those, like, what the heck is going on? Because there's no financial gain. Cyber criminals are smart. They're not doing it for, previously to all this, they're not doing it for reputation. They're doing it for money. Now you've got these guys. You got Ashley Madison. I don't even know why Ashley Madison happened. That was just hey, we don't like this site. Sony, we know why it happened. The FBI investigated it. They don't investigate a lot of these things. We know that they were mad about a movie. So the attack started with social media, with phishing. Here's the thing: 17 emails were sent to Sony. That's it. Sony Entertainment. Sony's a huge company, but the American Sony Entertainment division is a pretty big company. North Korea is not this technology giant that we should be scared of. They just aren't. I know that they do a lot of stuff in the news, but as a technology person, they are not this, oh my God, they're overwhelmingly scary. They sent out an email to 17 people to Sony, and they managed to get in. It just goes to prove you back to the number one threat is it's your employees. But it turned out to be this guy, Brian Krebs, he's like the leader as far as publicly announcing stuff. He's been sued by Sony. He gets sued all the time, and all he really does is report on stuff and bring out the details concerning the government and the investigations. But it's very interesting if you read his stuff he'll analyze it and tell us exactly how the stuff evolved. But spam that's where it gets in. I mean, for our managed customers, we filter a ton of spam for you guys. And the reason I know it is I'll see people sometimes, and that's the first thing they say to me. It's like, oh, yeah, 2 months ago, I got 3 pieces of spam, and you'd think it was the end of the world because of an inconvenience. It's not the end of the world because of an inconvenience. It's a real threat. We as IT guys, we don't really care if you're inconvenienced and have to delete 100,000 emails. We care about it because it's a threat. And now we've gone through all the stuff that's a threat, and this is what I really want to have you guys here for. I want to help you guys to avoid all this stuff. I didn't want to scare you with all the stuff that I said. I just wanted to let you guys know what's going on, what's coming, possibly from Japan. But this is how we protect you. It's how I got that's how I got this slide, and how I got the slide from Jaina. Is we all meet together. We meet together in DC. We met in New York recently, and we talk about all this stuff. Now, you've got a lot of big guys here. You guys see very little representation here. Merck's not representing you, even though they're right over there. Where you guys are represented is here in the ASCII group. We represent you guys through the group, the small businesses as a whole. Microsoft's not going to represent you. Disney's not going to represent you. So we get together with all these guys, and we try to find a common interest to solve these problems. Now, Merck's interest and your interest are two totally different things. I'm going to give you what we've tried to come up with you guys for everything. So this is what we want you guys to do this year on top of last year to protect yourself. We talked about this. Firewall, antivirus, just not enough anymore. You need to get a UTM in place. We have a policy, and we've had it for years. If you guys don't want to get one and manage one, we'll do it for you. This is the biggest thing that we've talked about all year long. I've been to multiple meetings. We need to educate the employees. We've known about this. Everybody that's in IT, we all know we have to do it. We couldn't find a way to do it, I'd say it, affordably without a disruption. So that's the one thing that we have to work on. I say this every year, but it's becoming more apparent. And the reason that it's on here now, you need to maintain a professional backup system. We had somebody that was the shortest customer we ever had. 3 days. Had a disaster, lost his data, was using I'm not going to bring up names, was using one of the consumer grade cloud backup solutions, no local copy. So we had to get him back. It took 7 days. The guy, he couldn't survive after 3 days, so he wound up shutting down. So review your backup systems. Make sure that it is business grade. And business grade means that you can get to the data, not 7 days later, not 10 days later, that you can get to it within what we call your recovery time objective. Anybody that didn't go to Dato and wants to learn about this, go to Dato. They talk about this all the time. So those are the things that we really want to get in place. And then, as always, ongoing monitoring maintenance of key security systems. All right. The reality is we need to get serious about protecting your company, about cybercrime, but what does that look like? So we talked a little bit about compliance, and we've got a ton of compliance. We've got Starbucks, HIPAA, ITech, Base 2, PCI DSS. That's actually PCI DSS is not compliance. Anybody that thinks that's compliance is totally wrong. That's an agreement, and that goes on the back of the state laws. That's how that's enforced. So don't, if anybody gets called about a PCI compliance audit, don't fall for it. Call us, and we'll tell you exactly what to do about it. The food and drug, which this one cracks me up. All this stuff is in the CFR. These guys don't even have a name. They're just like, hey, we're so cool, we're not even going to name it. We're just going to call it the title. We have GLBA, which I know a lot about. Anybody that's in banking, that's been around since '99 when it was signed into law. So Dodd-Frank followed up on that. But how do you make sense of all the information that's out there? All this stuff is in the CFR except for PCI compliance because it's not compliant. So it's in the Code of Federal Regulations. If you read through it all, there's really only 3 things that you need to do to improve your security standards. I mean, this is the government, so they spend a lot of time on this stuff. So you have to categorize information systems. That sounds confusing. It's not. It's an inventory. Assess security. Very vague terms. Not that. Do a security scan. And then the third thing they want you to do is monitor. I mean, here's all the stuff. You guys can read through it. It's going to take you a ton of time to read through it, but you're more than welcome to. The other thing, like I was talking about, these are the guys that spend $750 on a toilet seat, so don't think for a minute that they haven't looked at the best ways to protect yourself, and that's why we go back to them. So when we get to CFR 164.308A, which is repetitive in a lot of the CFR, they want you to do risk analysis, which is pretty self-explanatory. Conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of the potential risks and vulnerabilities and the confidentiality and integrity of the information. Information system activity review, also self-explanatory. Conduct an accurate and thorough assessment of the potential risks, implement procedures or regularly review records. We have response and reporting. That's real easy. Anybody that has NetWatch knows you get a ton of reports. Why do you get a ton of reports? Because you need to have them in case you get sued. Data backup plan. This is an actual plan. You can't say I got it in my head. You actually have to have it written down. But it is only a plan. It's not, they're not saying that you have to actually implement the plan. You just have to have it. Disaster recovery plan, once again, not in your head, write it down. Anybody that wants any of this stuff, you can get it off. If you have an account here, we put it on the customer knowledge base. Disposal of media, which means when you get rid of something that has data on it, what are your disposal policies? That's another thing that has to be written down. Media reuse, same thing. That's for people that used to use tapes or overwrite stuff. Security reminders, that's pretty vague. That just means security updates. Protection from malicious software, also vague. That means antivirus, malware. Login monitoring, who's coming and going, very easy. Password management, that should also be self-explanatory. If anybody has any questions afterwards, I can go through all of these. I have them all written down. But a lot of this stuff, if you want the definitions, I'll send them to you. Does anybody know what the R's and the A's are in the CFR? These are required. These are addressable, which I kind of find a little odd. Like, I would think antivirus would be required as opposed to a written disaster recovery plan or a written data backup plan or response and reporting. It seems like all the addressable stuff that would really protect you is addressable to where all this other stuff that you see a lot of these guys getting caught on, which are written documents, are required. So to me, it's kind of backwards, especially when you deal with password management. I've watched people hack passwords. I can tell you, if you fall under what's called a landman hash, I've watched people break it in under 7 minutes. So a landman hash is 8 characters or less. And not only did I watch people break it, I watched a Microsoft person break it, and they wrote it. But they hired someone to do it. So it was legitimate, like, hey, this is a serious thing. So we've got all these things to look at that the government tells us to look at. Kind of lost the clicker thing. All right, this is what I want to talk to you guys about as far as addressing all these things. We need to get the UTM that we talked about. We need to get spam filtering. Number one, like I said, everybody should have. Anybody that doesn't have that is going to be hating life. They're not going to even want to read their emails. We need to get control of what websites employees are accessing. We need to lock down the third-party cloud apps. I'm not picking on Dropbox, but they were the ones that lost 7 million accounts. So when you lose 7 million accounts, you're going to rise to the top. You need to implement mobile device policies and security protocols. If you're going to have mobile devices connect to the network, whether it's BYOD or company owned, you have to get something written down and get policies and procedures in place. Passwords. We could talk about passwords all day. Easy to hack passwords are easy to hack. Backup again. Employee education. And then we need to lock down the use of home PCs and devices. We actually had a call at the help desk where a lady was working at home, walked away from the computer. Any of you guys that are have contracts, you have that little green dot. So the kid came up behind her, was trying to play games, wound up clicking the green dot and called Brandon for emergency support at home. Now, it's kind of funny because it was her kid. Imagine if that was somebody that wanted to do something maliciously. She had the whole company network opened up in a remote channel. I mean, it was her kid. Everybody laughed. Okay, that happens. But if she was at Burger King or someplace else, it wouldn't have been that funny, you know? So you got to work on this as far as getting that locked down. So what do we have to do about it? I'm not going to talk about this a lot because I told you in the beginning we were started differently. When we were started, this is how we started. We started with what's called remote monitoring and management. If you think about this, the three things that the government wants you to do in all their CFRs is they want you to categorize information systems, they want you to do baseline security analyzing, and they want you to monitor. We implemented this in 2004. Shortly after we started the company, this was built out. This does all of those things. It also does risk analysis, information system activity review, response and reporting, security reminders, and login monitoring. I come from a banking background. I know what you guys need. We're in IT, so that's been around forever. The UTM stuff. I wish we could change the name. We adopted this too early. We started this in 2010. I'm not saying don't do it yourself, but if you guys don't want to do it, best way to get rid of liability is have somebody else do it. So we've done that for small businesses. We will not do bigger businesses because it's just too difficult to do. I know some of you guys are bigger, so we won't do you guys, but the smaller businesses, we will do. We'll do everything for you. And not only will we do it for you, we started the monitoring service before anybody else. We have the infrastructure in place. Not only will we do it for you, I can honestly tell you we will do it cheaper because we buy all the hardware. We buy everything. A lot of these guys out there, they make you buy the hardware, then they monitor it. We don't approach it that way. If you guys go out of business, we have a symbiotic relationship. It affects us drastically. So our best interest is to keep you guys in business and healthy. We were the original. This was something in 2007 that we started and built out. We built this before Data, which is Austin, who I know personally, started building his whole solution. Our solution we built out because we were tired of people taking home tapes and putting hard drives in their purses. But this is a file level backup. And like I said, we can do this very cheap, and we do it cheaper every year because the more we get better at it, the cheaper we can do it for. But what we brought in recently, and Data's been here a couple times, is disaster recovery as a service. This is really cool because you're going to start to answer this stuff on your liability forms. And Data comes here, so I'm not going to get involved a lot into it. If you want to know about it, come out and meet them because they buy great lunches, they have great gifts, they do a lot of cool stuff. But it is definitely cool. And when you're filling out that liability form, it's really cool to say, hey, you know what? Who handles this 100%? It's a great feeling to write Data because I fill out that form. We own this and we use this. So that's, I'm telling you as a customer of theirs also we use it. This is new to us. and this is password management as a service. We have looked long and hard to do something, and there was never anything out there. We've actually, the guy that is the president of this company, I've known him for years. We were speakers together at different events. He was the one that came up with the solution for businesses and really IT providers to handle the password thing. So that's relatively new too. So we have all these solutions up here. And if you look at all the other stuff, the required things were data backup plan, disaster recovery plan. Yeah, you can get them from us from the customer knowledge base, but it's a heck of a lot easier to have Datto do it because they're going to give you all the documents, which includes an end user license agreement, all the stuff with it. So all this stuff is designed what we view as the protection that the government thinks you need. So to get you guys started, like I said, we've been working really hard over the past year to get this stuff in place. We're going to do a security assessment for free. And with that, we're going to do an action plan for you guys for free. And the ongoing maintenance, that's up to you guys, whether you choose to have us do it or not. But we're going to take care of the first two things. The security assessment, we're going to come out, and like I said, we've worked very hard on this. Anybody that's done an old security assessment with us, you know it used to take 2 weeks. We have it down to a couple hours now, and that's through working with different vendors to really get the relevant information. Before, we used to have to get everything. Then we'd have to get this 2 weeks worth of data and look at it, which that's time consuming. So now we've literally got it down to 2 hours. Now it's not done in 2 hours, but our time and it's not disrupting you guys. It's our time on site with you guys is 2 hours. You can leave us alone if you want to, which most guys do. Most people do when they see the IT guys coming. They're like, oh, let's get out of here. But we're on your site for 2 hours. We're going to collect the information, and it's only the relevant information. A lot of people ask me that. We don't look at your files and folders. We don't care. Even when you drop your PC off here, we don't look at your files and folders. We take things apart. So we're not looking at anything. We're looking at configurations. That's it. But we're going to do the assessment. We're going to look at your data backups and look for ways to lower your IT costs. Make sure you don't have any really dangerous stuff. The action plan, it's going to all come along with it. It's going to take all the information and say, hey, what are we going to do about this? Like I said, we're not going to report leaks. We don't do that. I talked about the law that was proposed in 2015. It's not even a law. We're not obligated to do it, and we would never do it anyway. We would never do anything to hurt you guys because that's how we live. Without you guys, there is no us. The other thing is, you guys know me. I don't do a lot of these things, but there's no obligation here. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm trying to sell you anything. I never contact you guys. I never try to sell you guys anything. The only interest here is to educate you guys. So once you get all this stuff, it's basically 3 things are going to happen. You can like the plan and do it yourself, which it's a pretty detailed plan, so you could take care of a lot of it yourself. You can like the plan and have us do it, or you don't have to do anything. But remember, half the fines that we talked about today weren't really about what happened. It was the fact that they didn't know about half the stuff. That's where they really got pinched. So even if you do this stuff and keep it on a shelf someplace, and anything ever happens with it, usually within 12 months, you could say, yeah, I had a security audit done, which was the big beef with the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, that they did not have the security audit done. I think that might have been they already got a reduced fine. It might have cut it in half again. The other thing was their policies and procedures, which not too much you can do about that. But this is the thing that I want you guys to know we're going to do this, and it's going to be, we actually up the offer. We're going to do a network and security scan. The guys up in Satterton, they don't know we're doing this, so I can only do it till tomorrow at 5 because they're going to freak out. Their only interest in this lunch and learn is how much sandwiches are left over and stuff like that. So we're only going to do it to you guys here and the webinar people. But if you want to do it, please log on by tomorrow at 5. Now, if you're a NetWatch customer, and I know some of you guys are here, don't do it. You're not going to gain any information. And if you're a NetWatch customer, you're always entitled to do it for free. So there are some of you guys here, so you don't have to worry about this. Like I said, there's no obligation to buy or do anything with the plan. But if you want to do it, go to this thing. We'll knock it out for you. The guys are going to do it up there, even though they're going to be probably grumpy about it because I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of people watching on the web that are going to do it, but they'll get over it. That's their job. So for the guys, the other people here that don't need that done, I told you earlier we were with Data. We meet with a lot of vendors on your guys' behalf. So me, Dave, and Jake are with Data. I'm talking to them. So we'll send you a link for this to make sure you get the best deal. But and I have nothing against Dropbox or OneDrive, but the reality of it is they're not safe. They're not safe. And what if something happens to the employee? Like that was my big problem. I never took any information from the company off site, but the simple fact is, if I got hit by a bus, the people that were alive would, and they would have a terrible time getting into my personal Dropbox account or my OneDrive account. This is designed for businesses. This is a business solution. So, well, first of all, you can't beat free, but it is, I mean, we use it. It's a very good business solution. They're going to give it to you for free. And here's the big thing. When you get into Dropbox and Google Drive, when you start to get into the business plans, they start to charge you by user and by storage. You can cancel this after the first year, but it's free, and that's what I like about it is unlimited users, so you're not getting nickel and dimed. Like I said, even if you sign up for it, you try it, you don't like it, just don't use it, and then you won't get charged. As you guys know, we meet with ASCII a lot. I was just in New York with ASCII, and a couple of us were up there. This is kind of new. This is security awareness training, and this is something we've been working on a lot and how to make it affordable. And here's the deal that we got for you guys, $1 a user per month. Because that was my problem. It's easy to say, like when you're Merck, and I know Merck's not as big as they used to be, but they print money. It's hard for some of us to go to small businesses and say, I want $22.50 a month, which it was. It's now $22.50 a year. So we got it down to $12, which is $1 per user per month. And what that'll do is you guys are also going to see on your, I don't know if you guys fill out your liability forms or are responsible for them, it's going to start to ask you now, what are you doing for end user training? If you have network liability insurance or you have cyber liability insurance, that's going to be a question that you're going to have to ask. Don't write down network concepts, especially if you don't come to the security training. You got to do something, because a lot of people call me and they say, hey, yeah, I filled this out. I'm like, okay, what'd you do? Well, I wrote down network concepts for everything. You can't do that because we have we have the Hartford, and the guys that are filling us out have the Hartford. So some of the stuff we don't even do. Like, we don't develop applications. So make sure you're looking at it, reading it. If you need help, call me. I will help you fill it out and get the right information in there. But your best bet on all those things, it'll ask you percentage of what you do. Write 100% not me. That's your best option. If you can do it for $1 a month, we buy K-Cups here, and we're techs, so we drink about $100 worth of K-Cups a day. $1 a month is nothing compared to a K-Cup. And same thing with the password stuff. This drives me nuts, and the guys that work here know, because I used to work at a bank, and it's a violation of policy in most places. Passportal is the same thing. I was a LastPass user. Same problem with LastPass as Dropbox. It's not really designed for businesses. Even the business accounts at LastPass weren't designed for it. Not for the interaction you need. Passportal is a company out of Canada. I told you I know the guy. His name is Dan Wensley. He developed a solution that I really like. We're adopting it. We're phasing off of passwords. You guys know we don't keep your passwords, which is why a lot of times the techs will say, well, what's your password? And I know a lot of you guys get irritated with them. They're not doing it to be smart. They don't have your passwords half the time. Now, a lot of you call in a lot, and techs have a tendency to remember stuff. I was a tech for years. Especially if you use easy passwords, they'll remember them. But the reality of it is you shouldn't be using easy passwords, and this will get you out of it. And once again, not to pick on, and I know there's some NetWatch users out there, so don't jump on this. Because you already have a site license if you're a NetWatch user. You already have a pro license if you're a NetWatch user. So you don't have to jump on this. And if you're a NetWatch user, we will give you all the light licenses that you want, obviously, because we need to protect you. But if you're not, or if you want to add more pro licensing, we're going to get that down to half price with the vendors. So, like I said, I really appreciate you guys coming out. I hope you learned something. We spent a lot of time this year working on this, and I know it's scary and sometimes it's a little boring, but I appreciate you guys coming out. Like I said, I'm not a sales guy. I am a tech, so it's really not comfortable for me to be up here unless I'm passionate about it. I don't do a lot of these things. You'll see me do 2 or 3 a year, and I always aim to try to educate you. So I want to thank you. The other thing is, we need you guys, if you could, to fill out the feedback forms, because that's how we get ideas to make it better. The guys that are on the webinar, Jake, I think, has a webinar feedback form. And then if you guys have any questions or you want more to eat, help yourselves. But thanks for coming. No questions? Sure. Yeah, I don't want to bash any of them. It's not that they're not secure. You're going to hear a lot about Google, and we're going to talk about this last month. What Google did was stupid. When you shift data centers outside of the United States, you've already given the NSA a copy of it. Now, does that really matter for school districts? Not that much. Where we get into the discussion of insecurity is the businesses didn't like that. The businesses don't feel that the government has any right to their data, so they feel that by them trying to save electricity and shifting that data inside and outside of the United States, that was a vulnerability. But that's not really a vulnerability to me, so I don't want to bash any of them. So I do feel that they're safe. And if you guys want to come to the cloud one, it's going to be a lot less scary and more fun, and we're going to talk about cloud next month. But it's going to cover some of that stuff on what's going on. It's the only 3 I do. Is I do the security, the cloud, and then I do the internet kind of, not really marketing, but what's going on the internet. So that'll be next year, though. Any other questions? You can shout them out. We can turn on the lights and eat more food. All right, thanks for coming. If you guys want a K-cup before you leave, feel free to help yourselves.
You drink $100 in K-cups a day.
We drink a lot. Well, not me personally. We have another building up there. Yeah. What's that? Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, we get coffee when techs, for some reason, and the problem is they don't even drink it. Like, I walk around up there, and I constantly am throwing away some of you guys are techs, you know this. They get caught on something, then they instantly feel like they need another cup of coffee, and then there's these half coffee cups laying around. But it puts it in perspective of, what does password management cost compared to K-cups? Or, hate to say it, employee education, we know that's a big one. So, all right. That's a long conversation. Ransomware. Ransomware is, we'll wind this up for the guys online because they've gotten everything that they want to get. But so I guess bye to everybody online. We'll talk to you later.